we know that there's going to be conflicts, right, within teams. What's really interesting is coming off the tails of Salt's podcast, where you were a guest on there, is ours. We're talking very similar things, and I took the time to listen to the Monochrome podcast because they do a great job over there. And I remember you had mentioned something about, conflict resolution, specifically talking about that conflict within a team is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm curious, now that we're able to talk about specifically conflict resolution, can we first dive into that idea about why conflict on a team isn't necessarily a bad thing? And then once we've kind of talked about that, let's talk about how, what are some strategies to make sure that when we have to do conflict resolution on a team, we can do it in a way that's ultimately best for the kingdom, but hopefully is a win for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the presence of conflict is not a thing to avoid, it's a thing to celebrate, because where there's conflict, there's actually care. Like, there's actually a desire and passion to be able to do something, to move something forward. So if there's no conflict, honestly, that's the bigger red flag, is if there's no conflict, there's probably not a reason that anybody cares, And so if we don't create an environment as leaders where we can not just not even just create room, but actually lean into it and create an environment where healthy tension, healthy conflict can happen. Like, we're missing opportunities if we don't create that, because otherwise people don't feel like their opinion, their voice, their concerns have a place. And that's dysfunctional, like we were talking about before. So we have to be able to create that. And honestly, that we're better together. We always are. Like, you three, I'm sure, as you started this podcast, as you work on a project, if it's just one of you doing your own thing, and then the other other two of you are like, nah, I can't, this is Caleb's baby, I can't even add my voice to it or whatever. Like,
Phil, I'm going to stop you right there. We never have any conflict between the three of us. Never. Period. End of story.
Never. Yeah. I mean, like, we're missing out on an opportunity to invite people in to make it better. I mean, writing my book, like, it was terrifying to be able to write something, put something out there, and vulnerable to be able to put something out there, but so freeing to be able to say, hey, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm trying to do, but give me your feedback. Give me your, like, what is, some things were like, oh, maybe that was okay. All right. Mission accomplished. Other things like, oh, I did not mean that. Like, that's not at all what I was trying to do. So if you don't invite that, you're kind of putting horse blinders on to intentionally not see things that could make the very thing that you're trying to do better. So especially in creative teams, we have to create room for conflict and not run from it, but celebrate it when it happens. And that takes a level of vulnerability, though. That's not easy. But if we don't do it, like, you're going to be working on stuff by yourself.
Yeah.
I hear that.
I think something else that one of the hosts on that same Monochrome podcast episode mentioned was about how conflict and things like that are like disciplines. You have to work at them. You have to you have to put in the hours.
Yeah, you're right.
I think there's a lot of people that are people pleasers, or maybe they're just conflict adverse, and it's hard for them to say, okay, this is something I'm going to invite. But until you get more experience in that, like, you're not gonna be able to resolve and grow. I think I'm sure you have experienced plenty of conflict situations over the years. I mean, you basically have these massive conflict muscles because you've been in so many conflict based conversations.
Is that how muscles grow?
I think so.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
Honestly, when it hits me too, like, when it comes to conflict, obviously you want people to care, but if you have conflict without a care for each other as well, like, that's where it gets messed up. Like, you can have conflict with somebody to say, hey, I'm for you, I want you to win, like, and I want our team to win. That feels very different than conflict against a person that may. That's where it's not about the project. That's not about the task. It's personal, and that's not healthy. Like that. I'm not saying celebrate that. No. When you can lean in together to have conflict, to say, well, let's fight for the very best we can with what we have together, locked arms. That's a powerful thing.